Deep right field. Down the line it goes. Castellanos is out of room. It's out of runner goes. 3-2 pitch hit down the line. Is it fair? It is a fair ball. Into the corner. Off and running. Chu. Yu Chang around third. He's going to score easily. And into second. Hit hard. Hit deep. Up and out. Goes Amed Rosario. And there's a fly ball. Left field. It's deep. It's up. It's gone to the porch. Pretty well, deep left center field. It is gone to Souvenir City.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. We got a really special episode for you guys tonight. Not just the fact that the Guardians have moved into a first place tie with the Minnesota Twins, but I've got a special co-host with me. I got a guy that's just happy to be talking about a sport that's in season, and the all things Cavalier co-host, Joey Schneider. How we doing, Joey?
What's going on, Mel? Man, it is good to have something to talk about in season, like you said. I know you know how hard it is to create content and talk about a sport that is not in season, and you even had it rougher than I do right now because you were dealing with the lockout, so there was just nothing to talk about. And Guardians, like you said, first place, unbelievable. Got a lot to talk about. We're gonna get to that in a little bit, but I think you have someone else to introduce.
Yeah, and with us as a special guest tonight, we got the great Pat Ellington, who has a lot of different titles. He does work for MLB, Baseball Prospectus, the Society for American Baseball Research. How we doing tonight, Pat?
I'm doing well. How about yourselves? First of all, thank you guys for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, so it's funny. Joey and I were actually just talking earlier today, and we're talking about how when we read your work, we can really feel that emotion that you're writing with. Like that's a special kind of talent that not all writers have, that you're able to do just so effortlessly, just kind of showing that passion that you write with. So, what led you to start writing, and what do you enjoy about the work that you do and having that outlet?
So I've known I wanted to write since I was 12. I've been a huge reader all my life. I used to get in trouble for it actually, in school and stuff. I would, my bad, I had to put my phone D&D, I forgot. But yeah, I used to get in trouble in school for reading in class because I'd rush to finish my own reading classes just so I can read. At home, I'd stay up late and read. I'd use a glow-in-the-dark toy under my covers to read as a kid and stuff like that, and I'd get in trouble for that because I'd lose sleep and stuff, and it would affect my grades and stuff in school. And my mom was really big for me. She really pushed me to read. She taught me how to read and write when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And she bought me books all the time whenever I asked for them. That was one of the main things she really we really could afford to buy and stuff like that when I was a kid. So that was one of the things I was really into, along with movies and stuff. I didn't really particularly start writing about baseball or sports writing at all as a child or anything like that. It's something I kind of just stayed away from. Growing up, I wanted to be an author and screenwriter. I didn't start writing about baseball until 2020, right when the pandemic happened. I was going through writer's block that was spanning over multiple years at the time, and I wanted to just switch it up and see what happened. And I decided to start writing about baseball, and got to this point. People pushed me forward and stuff like that, like Shaquille Taylor, and so yeah, here we are.
That's a pretty amazing story, because when you read your work, it really seems like it's something you've been doing for a really long time. It doesn't seem like it's something that you just got into a few years ago. It seems like something that you've researched and studied for years and years. I mean, there's a lot of people who I know who have written, for major outlets who don't have the talent that you have, and you've only been doing it, like you said, for 2 years. That's incredible. And as Mel said before, your writing is very unique in the way that a lot of times when you read someone's either article, it could be an article, it could be a book, a column, whatever you want to call it. You're reading it and it's informative, but there's nothing behind it. And when you read your work, it's it's emotional. Your wording is just always perfect and on point, and it's really makes me angry and jealous that someone is able to be that good in that short amount of time. I mean, you are extremely talented, and you can see it through everything that you've written. I told you I wanted to read some of your stuff. I read some of your stuff before, like as soon as I met you, and then I kind of dove into a little bit more. And it's one of those things where you read one and then you want to read the next, and then you want to read the next. And every article that I read they were just equally phenomenal. And you are going to be doing very big things very soon. And I've told you that, but it's, really a pleasure to have you on the show. I do want to ask you one question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, by the way. Thank you guys both for those kind of words. I appreciate it. I'm a very sensitive writer. For me, I'll openly admit I'm kind of insecure about my writing sometimes. Because whenever I sit back and look at something, I know I could have done better on it. Like Jackie Robinson piece that you love so much.
I love that one.
I went over that with someone I knew, and now to me, I look at it as a first draft, and it kind of was a first draft, and I really kind of did rush that one. I'm very imperfect as a writer, and there's so many things I can do to grow and to get better, considering the small amount of time I've been here and observed trajectory that I've been on since I've started to get to this point. And I'm coming path or trailblazer for myself, considering what I write about and how I write about it and things like that. And so just thank you guys. It's kind of still jarring to be here a little bit, but at the same time, I know if I'm uncomfortable, I'm good. I really can't be comfortable, and I shouldn't be. I'm trying to. There's no reason for me to be comfortable. I should be trying to just keep on pushing myself forward. And I don't know. It's weird. Just getting to this point, and looking back and being on the inside, looking out instead of the outside, looking in a sense. But at the same time, I'm just gonna keep on taking it and running with it, because there's people with a lot less in the industry who have done way more. So that's what keeps me going at the end of the day. I know that I bring something, so it is what it is.
That's one of the coolest things about life too, is there's always something to work on. There's always areas to grow. And I've always been taught that. My parents, different mentors I've had in my life, that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. There's really no such thing as being stagnant.
Honestly, yeah, I totally agree with you. And what's funny? I really haven't had that many dollars or many people kind of express negativity over my work or anything like that to me. And I'm happy for that. And it's kind of cool. Because in the sense I want my stuff to be bulletproof, and I know it is. I know I'm well read and well researched and things like that. And I know I can back up how I view the game, how I write about the game and whatnot to anyone, whether it be the GM of a MLB team or you just regular casual fan. I know I can talk to anyone and meet them where they are and get them to see my perspective. And so at the same time, I'm confident too. I know I can grow. I've seen myself grow from a person who just decided to write about baseball players on the Medium page to working for Major League Baseball and Baseball Prospectus, doing similar things. So I know I'm on the right track. So it's just up to me to keep on working and keep on taking those steps forward, whether it's a millimeter or a mile.
Exactly. And that's, that's the way, like Mel said, that's how life is. But to really, like you said, I love your Jackie Robinson article, and you consider that a rough draft. For me, I would consider that like a completely polished, finished article. So for you to say, every day, and you're right, every day there's always something to work on to make yourself better, and that's in any aspect of life. But your work is so good right now that when you're at a point where you're like, when you're teaching people, and I fully believe this, if you guys really have not read Pat's stuff, Pat, give us the whole breakdown of where everyone can find your work.
Okay. So I'm mostly on Twitter at tangible_uno. You can find my online portfolio clippings.me/tangibleuno. Tangible TANGIBLE, Uno, UNO. you can just Google my name, Pat Ellington Jr., and you can find my articles. I've written for Baseball Prospectus, Baseball America, MLB.com, smaller sites like Overtime Heroics. I've written for Guardians Baseball Insider. Shout out to Justin Latta. He was very instrumental in me getting to this point where I'm at. Working with him, covering minor league baseball last year, it was huge. Getting those game reports and doing feature stories and stuff like that. So yeah, that was very big for me. I'm on Medium. I have my own Medium page. You can just type in Patrick Ellington and Medium, and you'll find my stuff. So yeah, I've written, I've bounced around and written a lot of places in a short amount of time. So
Yeah, and I wanted you to kind of give everyone, where you can find everything, because if you have not read any of Pat's stuff, go out there, read it. I promise you're just gonna keep going, reading everything he's written. It's very well done, very informative, very well researched about baseball, MLB, African Americans in baseball.
well, it's about Black people in baseball from throughout the African diaspora. When you look at the way it translates, like the slave trade, distributed individuals of African descent throughout the Americas. There were more Black people transported to Latin America than North America, and they actually established their own sovereignty and freed themselves before Black Americans did. The first Black town in the first established like city where Black people had their own sovereignty in the Western Hemisphere is in Colombia, and they still exist as a majority Black area to this day. Many people don't know this, but I mean, the United States wasn't even the country where the most slaves got sent to. It was Brazil, and there's also, there's a lot of history involved with how Blackness is viewed inside of baseball and outside of baseball. That's kind of skewed, and there's a lot of history that gets overshadowed and things like that. So it's up to me as someone who has proper education, who's been in those spaces around Afro-Latinos, Afro-Caribbeans, African people, and things like that, and been educated with them and by them. And just to give some background on myself, I went to Morehouse College, a historic Black college in Atlanta, Georgia. When you just give them, I went there, Dr. King went there. So that was a big impact on me and how I see the game. So yeah, I just try to write about Black baseball players because the way that we're covered, the way that Black people in baseball are covered historically, have been covered historically, is very incorrect, and has a lot of gaping holes in it in various different ways.
And that's why I love reading it, because like, as you just corrected me, I had no idea about what you just said, and a lot of what you've written I didn't know either. So it's very informative, it's very good to read, it's very fun to read, and you come out a better person for reading your stuff, which is, just like I said, your writing is extremely hard to do. You can't, the emotion behind it, the amount of research that you put into it is incredible. And you come out of reading your articles, your columns, your stories as a better person and a better sports fan, a better person, more importantly, but also a better sports fan. And that's why, we just love, everything that you do.
Yeah. And
Mel, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mel.
I wanted to just kind of touch on that. You've written articles, highlighting Bo Naylor, George Valera, the top 30, Black MLB players. Kind of tell us what went into, those rankings, and, how that felt for you being able to have an outlet to share something like that.
So the Black MLB players and Black MILB players, things that I did on my individual independent media page, I just kind of wanted to write informative, introductory like articles, giving people who are fans who aren't fans stuff about the player's personal background and about their style of play. And I wanted to do about Black players from throughout the world, because Black people come from throughout the world and have made impacts on the sport of baseball from throughout the world, especially on the record and off the record. Many Black people from Latin America and the Caribbean and things like that have been adamant about proclaiming their Blackness. Players like Roberto Clemente, Manny Minoso, Rod Carew, countless examples. They've had their Blackness erased because People were okay with them claiming that on record. But I just wanted to just give more visibility to Black baseball players. Baseball players in general have poor visibility compared to other sports, and for Black baseball players, that case is even worse. So I just wanted to I just kind of did it just to write. It was no really particularly reasoning in my rankings besides I wanted to do it on young baseball players that weren't really well known household names or maybe were, but are also still in their prime and in their youth. So there may not be as many people who may not know about him. Like Mookie Betts is probably he would be a superstar if he had the visibility, but he just isn't because he doesn't have the visibility behind him. And that kind of encapsulates why I write about baseball. And along with my other reasonings. So there wasn't any it worked. I just wanted to just number them too, just to tell people that 30 is a lot. Like 30 is a good, I mean, and also many people, I feel like if more Black people saw how many Black baseball players still play baseball and the history behind the game, it would be a lot easier for people to want to get into the game and to feel compelled to pay attention to the game and to go back and look at its history and things like that. Because the history of the sport is undeniable when you really look at it and do your research. But all that gets buried under misconceptions and external factors that are designed to cover over those things and stuff like that.
And you mentioned the work, you did for Guardians Baseball Insider. So obviously, as we know, the Guardians have the youngest team in baseball right now. Many of these guys who are making an impact with the big league club, you've had the opportunity to cover down at these affiliates and kind of got to learn their games a little bit. How cool is it seeing, just all these scouting reports and all the things we talk about on Twitter and on podcasts actually translating to success at the major league level to, have this team in a tie for first place on August 10th when nobody expected this. This was a rebuilding year.
Yeah, for sure. Cleveland has always been about rebuilding on the fly and the current regime and stuff like that. And it just kind of shows how good they are at scouting and developing first and foremost. When you look at it, this current regime first came in control in 2016. 2016 was their first draft, and they already made an impact by having Will Benson, Nolan Jones, the pitchers, and things like that. And they also made do with prospects from former regimes like Tristan McKenzie and whatnot. Although Cleveland's very internal and the current regime was still in the organization, and they weren't really making the final decisions. So some things changed when they took control in 2016. Like there was more of a shift to younger players from, like 2013 to 2015, there was a lot of college players they took early in the draft. But it's really cool to see, Cleveland prove people wrong. For me, it's kind of weird. As I've gotten more into the writing scene, my fandom has changed a little bit. I've become less of a Cleveland fan and more of just a general baseball fan for sure. And I feel like that's what's for the best in terms of me covering the sport and whatnot. And that's also kind of just natural, I think, for me, just kind of having to have a more macro view just based on my role and me developing as a baseball writer and things like that. But so just trying to be objective and unbiased, Cleveland really stick to their guns, and they kind of walk through transition from their old core, from that was a lot of who was part of 2016 World Series, and casting those guys off and training them at the right times. And a lot of that includes doing so when us fans may not understand things like that, like the Corey Kluber trade, like the Bauer trade, and the Clevenger trade, things like that. I mean, you gotta look at you really got to look at it when you really look at the current structure of the 25-man roster. It's all homegrown players or players that were traded from the former core that was just here a couple of years ago. So they clearly made the right decisions of when to sell on guys, and we're kind of planning to do so as they kind of saw the core wasn't really as good as they thought it was, based on the fact that they were only really truly contenders in 2016 and 2017. And to me, in my opinion, and Yeah. So
I love that you brought that trade up because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. So many people were upset that we traded Corey Kluber for a relief pitcher.
I
Like,
mean,
why
it's
would you
not
get
just
rid of
that
him
one.
for
I
that?
mean, it's not. I mean, it's not even just that. I was high on Class A when we traded for him. I thought it was a great move. I really liked Class A's profile as a unicorn, and he's proven to be that. Especially considering what Corey Kluber's value was, and considering his injury history and whatnot, things like that. And that's one thing Cleveland's good at doing. They're really good at gauging value and also targeting what they like in guys they know how to make work, and guys they know how to they're very good on, if it isn't broke, don't fix it, and that's okay. Sometimes I feel like in any type of industry you can overthink trying to make a great thing better, and you'll screw it all up. So I think they really kind of hammered down on the sustainability and the repeatability of it all, considering the fact that just the nature of the sport in general, and also them concentrating on high contact bats and stuff like that is smart, and also shows a lot of foresight and great observation skills about where the game is. So they seem to have just a very solid front office from top to bottom that works for them.
And so just something to add to that. You talked about the Clevenger and the Kluber trade, and a lot of people don't even talk that much about the Lindor trade. Everyone thought that we got fleeced the Lindor trade. Like, who's this Ahmed Rosario? Who's Andre Jimenez? They're only an all-star and probably going to be an all-star next year players. I mean, we got back, two amazing pieces of what we have, our first place team right now, shortstop and second baseman. And they're young, they're fun to watch, and people don't even realize where we got them from. Most people who I have talked to either think that we drafted Jimenez and Rosario. They don't even know that we got him. That's who we got in the trade for Francisco Lindor. So, like you said, it's just they're really good at scouting who they're going to trade to and what they want in return.
Well, the Lindor trade is kind of different from the other ones. We knew that Cleveland wasn't going to re-sign him.
Right.
And there's not even that. I don't believe in can't afford. Billionaires can afford to do anything. They didn't want to pay him.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's cool. For me, with the Lindor trade, you got to look at it like this. You only have 1 year left of control left, I think. To the COVID pandemic and things like that, we're gonna play a huge factor in as well. Concerning the value and stuff like that. With the Mookie Betts trade, I kind of set the precedent for how that package was going to be constructed. 2, 3. Cleveland doesn't really get the benefit of the doubt for trades, like in terms of trading away established major league players like Lindor. So
as we talk about these guys we got for Lindor, and you were high on Class A. You've wrote articles about Bo Naylor, and I know people saw the George Valera promotion, well deserved, to AAA earlier in the week. This is probably part of this next Corey you talk about that's gonna really step up and play a big role when this next kind of championship window opens up, when all the stars align. But what can you tell us about Bo Naylor, George Valera, and just not just who they are as players, but who they are as people?
Well, they're both very talented, articulate people. It seems like very proud of who they are, where they come from. Very well aware of the impacts they can make with the game of baseball and how the game of baseball impacts society and intersects and things like that. When I approached Bo Naylor about doing a story about him being a black catcher, about being a Jamaican Canadian catcher, actually specifically, he was very open and on the same wavelength in terms of and very understanding of how the impact he can make on the game and who he can make the impact for and what it means to be a black catcher and things like that. And it all trends over to the baseball side as well. Very talented guy. Like, I think I was talking to Joey about it. I can't remember who, but you gotta look up on him and think about it. He was a straight prep to pro catcher drafted out of high school in Canada. That's a huge testament to his skill. And what teams think of him for him to even go that high. And when looking at his major league career, the track that he's been put on by Cleveland, when looking at Cleveland's behavior with handling catchers, especially college catchers at that. You look at the nature of the catcher position, looking at how it's usually the oldest position at any level, and at any level from rookie ball to the majors, and the requisites and the standards that the catcher position has from the defensive side and how important those are to where the offensive standard is so low, even in the minors too. I mean, it's a testament for him to be where he's at and do what he's doing. I mean, it's just crazy. I feel like he's always been underrated. I feel like the way catchers kind of get graded and stuff like that is kind of weird and doesn't really have a lot of consistency, but that's just the nature of the position itself. He's really a very, very good catching prospect, a very unique one who has a ability to play defense along with power and speed and contact and stuff like that. And the fact that he's also so high up and also doing so with the pandemic happening, things like that too, is also a testament in itself. George Valera is another very talented player. Very, very good guy. Comes from a very tight-knit family, very good family. Very, very intelligent person too. He's a very observant and leadership-oriented person, but he does hold by example and things like that. He understands the charisma he has when he's on the field and the way and he understands the gravity that comes with the type of talent that he has, and he really uses it fully to his advantage in every single way that he can.
That was, I think me and you were in the press box at the captain's game, and I think all of us got we all got in that conversation about talking about the best catchers and kind of all time, and who was the best hitting catcher of all time and stuff like that. So that was fun. And me and Mel, just before before we came on air, we were talking on the phone about pretty much the same exact topic. And maybe Bo Naylor is going to fit into there at some point here soon, but we do need to talk, and we need to switch topics just a bit about our first place Cleveland Guardians. What they've been doing, what they did this last week, and how right now, today, August 10th, 2022, the Cleveland Guardians are in first place of the Central Division. Mo, how do we get here? And then Pat, I want to get your thoughts on what they've been doing, where you think they're going to end up, and you guys definitely know more than I do. I am a big Guardians fan. I cannot take the unbiased out of it, Pat. I am sorry.
No, you're good, man.
But
I'll tell you what,
this team is just incredible.
What I'm seeing right now is everything is starting to click at the opportune time, right? Obviously, we know the Central's not that good this year. Nobody's really running away with it. It's like nobody wants to win it. The Twins, made some upgrades to their pitching staff, which we all know was much needed. And they're still not running away with it. But what do the Guardians do? Their starters finally get it together. They're at 21 straight scoreless innings, I believe, right now. Cal started it off Saturday in Houston. Tristan on Sunday, a guy you mentioned earlier, Pat, 8 innings pitch, held the Astros scoreless with that lineup. That's just so impressive. And then they get Savali back tonight, which it's going to be fun to see how he comes out. But then you go in the bullpen, Karinchak finally getting it together. Obviously, we know he won't be able to travel to Toronto with the club this weekend just due to their vaccination rules. But luckily you got Cody Morris ready to be activated off the injured list on Friday. Columbus has been using him in a relief role. I think he went 3 innings last night. So this pitching, which obviously Cleveland teams have always kind of been built around, it's finally starting to click. And they're doing this with Jose Ramirez being good the last couple months. He's been good. He was an all-star, but he's not that great, outstanding, lighting up the box score every night. And I think that's what's so impressive is it could be any number of guys in this lineup who could win us a game. We're not solely dependent on if Jose Ramirez doesn't have a hit, we're getting blown out. And I think that's one of the coolest thing of having a lineup full of contact-oriented hitters with Stephen Kwan at the top. They just called Tyler Freeman up. You know, even Nolan Jones typically has a good eye at the plate. I know he's adjusting to the big league level, but it's we're finally starting to see years of work this organization has put in to build a core like this that they knew was going to be ready to come up. And obviously we have log jams they're going to have to sort through, but that's the fun stuff. You know, that's the stuff we all get to sit here and wonder what they think of each of these guys. What are they going to do in the middle infield? But the fans are excited. You know, there were a bunch of people upset. You know, the Guardians didn't make any moves last week. And, you know, a week later, we're in first place. You know, you can't tell kids they can't win. And I think that's the biggest thing here.
You know, that's a good point. You know, at the same time, it's only August 10th. There's a lot of time left. We'll see what happens. I had the Twins winning the division. I still think they are. I think Cleveland has a chance to eke a wild card spot out. We have to see. It's going to be tight all the way to the end, I think, with the wild card spot. Cleveland has a very exciting core to build around and a lot of pieces considering they aren't the best pieces. And do you stick your guns to keep the pieces you have now, or do you just cycle through guys and just wait and see? For me, when you look at 40-man roster management, that's going to be key. That's going to be a very big thing. But I think for me, I think it's too early to, to give guys their flowers. I think even with the success young rookies I've had, like Stephen Kwan, things like that, there's always a chance that the shoe could drop and things like that. So, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I mean, as fans, it's always great to be optimistic, and optimism is infectious. But at the same time, the team is still very young and experienced. On the other hand, this team has some very unique skill sets for a very young team. Like, they're one of the best defensive teams all of baseball. They're amongst MLB leaders in UZR, DRS, and raw fielding stats like fielding percentage, errors, and stuff like that, turning double plays. When you look at their contact ability, they don't hit for a lot of power, but they don't really swing and miss much. Lowest K rate in baseball, lowest swinging strike rate in baseball collectively. And they're also a very athletic team, elite base running team, being top 10 in BSR per fan graphs and stuff like that, just off the top of my head. But they have a lot of the fundamental skill sets you need to be a good team. They're just very young, very raw. So we'll see what happens. I feel like Minnesota's star power, Buxton and Correa, will kind of carry into the playoffs for me. Because at the end of the day, that's true weight, and that's really what they have more than Cleveland does. Jose has still been a great player, but he's been a little more pedestrian than I would like to have seen him. I thought he was going to have his magnum opus season this year, but it is what it is. He's playing through injuries and whatever. That's what he does. So,
yeah, those are good points. Go ahead, Joey.
Well, I know, Pat is he's 100% right. You got to be, especially when you're a fan of the team, you want to be as optimistic as possible.
No, I'm just trying to be the foil, just to be compelling.
Yeah. Sure. No, I mean, but there's also you got to be realistic about it as well. So, just my realistic expectations for this year for the Guardians is to win the World Series. I just think that that's the most realistic outcome in my completely unbiased fandom. No, I love it. I love it. You know what? All I'm saying is for a team that was supposed to, like Bell said, to be rebuilding, I feel like there's a negative connotation of rebuilding too. Well, that's the thing is to be in August right now. When we think of rebuilds, how often do we think 100 lost seasons instead of 80 seasons?
Right.
Or
maybe at 85 and 70 and 79 season.
Right.
Or no, that's 77. I'm sorry, 85 and 77.
Yeah, that's what I had him at.
I'm just saying in a year where
off again.
In a year where the optics were that we weren't supposed to be as good as we are. We are. I love you too, Mel.
The optics are amazing. I feel like with Cleveland, they've really kind of positioned themselves as like a AL version of the Cardinals in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And either way, I think it's going to be a fun last couple months of baseball. You got teams like Baltimore and Seattle in the wild card race, which is good for baseball.
I
You know,
know
you
for
got
sure the
these
parody.
exactly.
The parody is very good. And I feel like baseball's parody doesn't get enough attention too. The inherent
Yeah.
parody to sport, and so it'll be fun. I feel like I also like the 3 wild card spots too. I feel like
I
that
do
was
too.
long
Yeah.
overdue. Although for me with the wild card, I would like the wild card to be a 3-game series instead of just one game.
All right. Well, that will do it for this week's episode. Pat, I want to thank you once again for joining us here today. And just one more time, why don't you give people your Twitter handle where they can find you?
You can find me on Twitter at tangible_uno, TANGIBLE_UNO.
All right. And Joey, thank you for hopping on here with us tonight.
It has been a pleasure. Love it. Hope I get to come on at least one more time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you guys for
More times
having me.
than us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. Glad to be here.
You'll definitely be back on, Pat.
Big game tonight with Savali on the bump. It'd be nice to take at least 2 out of 3 from Detroit before they head up to Toronto, the country up north, home of the Naylor brothers, to put themselves in good position heading into another wild card contenders home stadium. So I want to thank you guys again for joining us. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week. Go Guardians.